Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of your favorite show, Aidan's Art Academy. So today we're gonna look at Aidan paint one of the best characters, who I believe is America's Lord and Savior, Jagshemash. It is Shadi. It's Borat, not Shadi. Oh, you give the British reference there. How you doing, Aidan? How's life?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to get some Borat action going. Get the kind of push broom mustache.
Oh, hell yeah, hell yeah. Yo, that guy's
Painted
breaking
in
down berries and shit. But before we start on the painting, I just want to remark on like your shirt and this whole getup. It's very handsome, my friend. Good job, good job.
Thank you. You can't really see it, but I have. This is all clothing that my girlfriend bought me. I have skinny jeans on too.
Good tasting.
So you'll have to picture that with there.
It's okay. You can just tell everybody that you're not wearing pants, and like most people, I feel like would just watch it for you, and then like maybe 10% will watch for the painting. But you know,
I'm still wearing pants. I'm still wearing pants.
I am not.
I get my leg.
I
can't get my leg up there.
I don't wear pants in my room. I'm not gonna get my leg up, but yeah, I don't wear pants in my room. I don't wear shirts. I just put on a shirt because of the stream. But all right, about.
It's gotten cold enough. It's cold enough in New York that I no longer feel like doing that.
Really. Okay. Well, I just got a lot.
It's not cold. It's pleasant. It's a pleasant temperature, but I would rather have clothes on than not.
That's good. Yeah, you should move to LA, man. We're just like sunny all year round. Like seriously, just.
Oh, I miss that. When I lived in Laguna Beach, that was just paradise. Yeah. I mean, I've grown to really love New York, but yeah, the weather and. Also, Laguna Beach was just like a nice place.
You sound a little resigned when you say, "Yeah, I have grown to like New York." It's like New York broke you, and now like you're just resigned to the fact that you live here. You might as well just like it.
Well, I hated it for the first 2 years. I think part of it was not being used to the weather, or the garbage, or the copious amount of time I spent commuting. Like you hear about that in California, like the commute takes so long.
Yeah,
getting anywhere in New York on the train. It's always like 40 minutes to go anywhere, and you have no control over it. There's no sense of autonomy, and if the train's late, you're just screwed. So, it was not love at first sight. But no, at this point, I genuinely really do. I don't like that part, but
love after like 2 solid years of like shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I may have already made this bit, but I've got like Stockholm syndrome now, so I'm probably going to be here for a while.
All right. Well, in the interest of Stockholm syndrome, like this greatest transition ever. So who are painting today, Aidan? Even though I just revealed it in the beginning of the episode, but give us a taste.
Not a big surprise, but no, we're doing Borat. Yeah. I don't know when the photo was taken. I think it was a recent one, which I suppose, given the movie that's. Or no, it just came out.
It came out
2 days ago.
Yeah, Amazon Prime. Yeah, give us money, Amazon Prime.
Yeah, okay. I still
Amazon
haven't watched it. I heard that it kind of did Mitch McConnell dirty, which I'm fine with.
Or it was. Was it also Mitch McConnell? It was another guy.
No. My bad. Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah. That's right. McConnell wouldn't. Well, yeah. No, McConnell's wife would kill. McConnell's wife is Asian, and I feel like she's one of those tiger mom Asians. You probably wouldn't dare.
I feel like he'd be more careful too. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Anyways, I haven't seen it, but I'm a big Sacha Baron Cohen fan. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely, and I've never painted Borat, so this is going to be a good time.
All right, this is first time. Okay, so first time painting Borat, like you have a lot of pressure on your shoulders right now. You have to do a good job. If you don't do a good job,
I might pay for this later, but I think he has an easy face, like his nose shape, and he's got a very caricatured, like, eyebrows, pointy nose, mustache, and like kind of afro-y thing. So it's like it shouldn't be that hard. I thought Nick Cage I struggled with a bit. So
he has a very expressive face. Yeah. But now that we said that it's easy, like I feel like the final product has to like fit what you just said. So if it looks like shit. Everybody. I'm gonna give out Aidan's email and then just
bring it.
Bombard him. Okay, all right. Well, enough talk. Let's see what you got, my friend.
All right. So there's the reference. You'll have to zoom for me.
Yeah, it is already zoomed. We are all good to go.
Oh, sick. Okay. Yeah. I didn't need to peel back the curtain that way though.
No, bamboo curtain stays on.
And there's a little crease in the canvas, but that's okay.
Oh, so anyways, is that the problem? Crease in the canvas? Is that why you can't paint this good, huh? Is that your excuse?
No, not making excuses. Oh my god, are you gonna?
Excuses, man. You're probably gonna blame the curse for this painting not turning out well.
The curse.
The curse.
Oh,
It is the curse. Man, it's been so long, huh?
I lost one of my brushes. Okay.
Whoa. Okay, let me minimize my photo real quick just for the audience so you guys can see what Aidan would be painting. Because this face of Borat is quite expressive. Far more expressive than mine.
I don't know. I've done many a painting of you, and it is one of the more expressive faces I've had the pleasure of working from.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm stoked. I'm trying out some different materials today, and it's going to be a good time.
Hell yeah.
I'm gonna have to go a little bit faster than the last one.
Jagshemash.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's new? What's good? Slice.
Oh man, just well, like mostly because of the nature of my job is just like watching the political like playing field right now, and it's a little bit of a mess, and it's to the point where I genuinely think like Donald Trump is gonna like get 4 more years. Like I'm 60% sure he's gonna get 4 more years.
I wouldn't be surprised, not because any lack of faith in Biden per se, but I don't remember what it was, but I saw some stat a while back. Maybe Xanthi told me. Everything I know comes from Xanthi. I'm dumb, and she just feeds me information so that I can function.
She also sounds British, which makes her sound smarter. Like you can say dumb stuff with a British accent, and it'll sound like poetry or something.
Well, I mean, there is like a redneck, like dumb accent in England, and she doesn't have it. She has it's like the thing where they say like bruv, and it's called, I think, if I recall correctly, and I might be getting this wrong for all of our EU listeners.
It's okay. We don't care. We're American. We're not afraid of those Brits. We won the war.
I think it's called like a chav accent, and it's like Essex places. Like, did you ever see any of that Love Island show?
I've seen shows similar to that. Like, I'm familiar with the accent that you're referring to, actually.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that. But no, so there is definitely a way to be English and sound. I'm not saying that it automatically makes someone dumb, just like someone with a redneck accent is not automatically dumb, but that's the perception.
Makes them less respectable.
But no, she has a posh British accent. She sounds like the Queen.
It's the Hermione Granger instead of the.
Yes. Okay, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I don't think there were any like chavs in Harry Potter, because like the Weasleys were a little bit more in that direction, but I don't think that was like a true like Essex accent. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, she got a good one.
Yeah, I guess not including rednecks in Harry Potter is sort of the opposite of not including like religion in Harry Potter.
I never thought of that, but I would be big into like a redneck, just an American redneck character in Harry Potter.
That would be amazing.
Or like, like when you go to like Walmart and there are those bargain bins where they have like cheap Chinese knockoff animations that are like the Ice Queen, and it's like a really like terrible budget looking Frozen, or like Bug World, and you can clearly tell what movie it's based off of.
Yeah. I actually have a really fond place in my heart for those things. Every time I looked at it, it's like, this is better than the original. Clearly. Yeah, I recently saw like a Chinese Lego knockoff of Harry Potter, and it's called Justice Wizard. And like every single one of those wizards, so there was like Harry, obviously with a different actor with glasses, Scar, there was Ron, there was Hermione, and they all look far more attractive than the actual like actors themselves. So I was like, I want to watch this instead. It's like Jersey Shore being Harry Potter.
More than Emma Watson? Goddamn.
I know it's rare, but like, man, it's just Emma Watson has a special place in my heart. Like maybe just looking at her face, like without any emotions or feelings, I think this girl was arguably objectively more attractive. But yeah, I would take Emma Watson.
Oh snap! Well,
any day.
China's rocking it then.
You have the money, so you can go all kinds of bitches. It's called Justice Wizard. Yeah. It was a funny
That's a rocking name,
right?
Oh man,
that's like American.
Now I gotta
Harry
watch
Potter.
me some. I gotta watch me some Justice Wizard. But anyways, the point I was going to with this is I'd be big into like a redneck Harry Potter.
Like a full cast of redneck Harry Potter. I would watch that.
Yeah, well, I think there are a number of things that kind of like I don't know what the like, because okay, I know that like Pokemon was a problem for the kind of like Bible Belt because of all
No.
the evolution stuff.
Oh my
Um,
god. So they had a problem with like evolutions in Pokemon. Is what you're telling me? So Pokemon
oh
can't
well,
evolve.
it was more the fact that because evolution was like so baked into the Pokemon lore
Mhm.
that the idea of a show promoting evolution was seen as no bueno. Which
uh,
you know,
I
had you not heard that?
I
I don't
have
remember
not.
when
This
I
is
learned
news to
this.
me. But I gotta say though, I don't say
Okay.
this often, and I don't say it a lot because I don't want to judge. But if your god makes you hate Pokemon, your god is wrong. Like that's, come on, dude. That's like our culture, man. Well, not our culture, Japanese people's culture, but you know, we all Asian. It counts, man. I'm gonna take credit for that. Yeah,
Well,
it's
you
our
know,
culture.
Pokemon is it's a very Darwinian show. You
Hmm.
know.
Yeah,
I guess
survival
they,
of the fittest.
I guess they kind of they edited out the survival of the fittest portion of it,
Yeah.
which is kind of cheating. But
So actually, little
but
quick.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
would assume that Harry Potter, because of like magic and the occult and kind of pagan roots in some
Hmm.
way, would have presented a similar problem. So yeah, there was definitely in 2005 probably a market for a redneck Harry Potter.
Hmm. I honestly just think there's a market for that right now. Like everything's getting remade and all that stuff. So I would watch it. Like
Right,
you just
and
see like
all of
somebody
those people
struggling,
still,
yeah, with spells and stuff, and
yeah,
like it's not Avada Kedavra, it's Avada Kedavra. No, no, no. It was when Gajam Liviosa and like a redneck. When Gajam Liviosa, or I don't know. I can't do a redneck accent. Do you have a
I don't
redneck
think I can
accent?
either.
Yeah.
I don't think. Okay, here
How
I
y'all
can give it a
doing?
go. This
Yeah.
miss. Wingardium Leviosa. No, that's not very
Wingardium
good. That was pretty
Leviosa.
bad.
Leviosa. It was better than mine. Like if I do mine, then you do yours. All of a sudden, yours sound like actually pretty good.
Well, I mean, I'm American and I grew up in Nevada, so the fact that I don't have a better redneck accent is shameful.
Yeah. Well, I was in Georgia for like 4 years, and I picked up the word y'all. Like I'll say y'all like a lot now, but
Well,
other than that,
y'all is
not
a very
y'all.
useful term.
Y'all,
I think.
exactly. It's cool.
Well, no, I mean, y'all is. I think there's a future for y'all in kind of like the woke
Ah, ah,
pronoun sphere.
there's a future for
Um,
y'all. I see what you did there. I don't know if it's on purpose.
oh,
It's a future
that
for
was not
y'all.
on purpose. But no. But in all seriousness, because this is okay. I'm sorry. This has been a remarkably scatterbrained conversation so
Hmm.
far.
It's totally good. Also, just to interrupt the flow of this whole thing real quick, in the beginning, before you got to like the actual lines on his face, it looked a little bit like Bob Ross, like as depicted on the Boondocks.
Oh yeah, well he's got a bit of a Bob Ross like fro
The
going
fro,
on.
that's the fro, yeah. And like you can't tell yet that that's a mustache. Well, you can tell, but Bob Ross also had a mustache, right?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
He had a
yeah.
beard.
He had a, like a Tony Stark thing, yeah, before it was cool. But yeah,
A Tony? No, Bob Ross. I don't think he did. I think
was
Bob
it?
Ross had like a full beard.
Huh?
I don't think Tony Stark and Bob Ross have a ton in common.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Well, Bob Ross
I
did
could,
that.
I, could-
Was
I should know that,
no?
but
You are the
I
artist.
should be, I should be certain of that, but I'm not. Yeah. Anyways, I could see it. There was
Yeah,
a little bit of Bob Ross going on
I
there,
like
but
it. I
not with
like it.
Tony Stark.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that one.
Yeah. No, no. I was saying like Bob Ross maybe with not this guy, but then yeah, now I'm thinking about it. There's really nothing in common. Although Bob Ross did make a lot of money from his shows, and he should. He deserves that. Like it's one of the instances where really just you make that money and you make people happy, and it's happy for everybody, man. What a
Yeah,
legend.
it never occurred to me what Bob Ross's financial situation was. I hope that he did well off of all of that.
Really well. It
I
was
don't.
in the tens of millions, several tens
Oh,
of
really?
millions, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, of dollars. Because yeah,
Okay. So did he see most of that, or did PBS like screw him out of it?
oh, that was his cut. His cut was I believe was several times. Like I looked it up the other day. Like it was over the million mark for sure, and I'm pretty sure it's in the tens or 20, might have been 30. I don't know. He
And
was well off.
are we talking like 80s, 90s money, or is that adjusted for inflation?
No, that was just 80s and 90s money. Like, so he had a lot.
Nice.
Yeah, he had a lot, which he deserved,
Okay.
man. Yeah, like honestly, he was therapeutic. Like when I was a kid, I didn't have that many channels on TV, so all I had was Bob Ross and like the channel where they sell old people jewelry. Yeah, buy this now. It was
So,
$5 million. We're selling it for 10,000. Those.
so to borrow some of the kids' terminology, there's some tea on Bob Ross that you probably don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't remember his mentor's name, but he had a mentor that claims to have taught Ross everything about like the technique and the way that he filmed. So there was a guy before Bob Ross who did the exact same thing, who
Really?
taught Bob Ross how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he may have sued Bob Ross. I don't know if it was successful, or maybe he just has sort of made a career of slandering his name. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
apparently his mentor had some serious beef with Bob Ross for stealing his thing and then becoming far more popular,
Yeah.
which has got to hurt.
Sort of, yeah, but I mean, I think Bob Ross would have sort of understood, like, would have been okay with it though, because, I mean, number one, if that guy successfully sued Bob Ross, then anyone that ever taught anybody who became a success could probably sue them. Um,
I know it is a
yeah,
little bit like, okay, whatever, dude.
yeah,
Like,
it's like, come on, man,
free market economy.
right?
Get better at talking.
Also, there are actually I'm pretty sure there are actually several people in the world who can do what Bob Ross does to very similar degrees, if not better. But it was the tone and the character of Bob Ross which made that show very fire, like very popular. He has a
Although
soothing
it's funny
tone that
because
you can just watch him.
when you see video of the mentor, you're like,
Hmm.
oh, yeah, this is really like the brand is 100% the same.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
Bob Ross may well have been better at it. I haven't
Hmm.
done like a super direct comparison in a while. I haven't
Yeah.
brushed up on the Bob Ross lore
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
I had no clue we'd be getting into that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly. For the
I
future,
can
Aiden, just be safe and just study all of art history and political history and like everything else. Anything goes here, my friend.
That's so funny. I've never heard of Bob Ross being referred to as part of like the canon of art history, although I like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
modern sort of art history, I guess. I mean, I think he
I
introduced
think
art into a lot of people, though, because definitely a lot of kids saw
pop
that.
culture. Yeah, actually, you know what? I don't know. Yeah, because I've never really heard Bob Ross referred to in any respect within like the circle of art, but he's definitely like a big pop culture figure.
Yeah.
Um,
And he used art as a conduit to his success, which, if you think about it, actually is probably more influential than most artists from that era and this era. Like a lot of
oh yeah,
painters,
absolutely.
yeah, a lot of modern painters that you know probably has a sphere within like a very specific niche, like people who are really rich and they buy paintings, or like really upper class people, like bougie people. But the thing with Bob Ross is that everyone knows him. Like you mentioned, the best artist right now in the whole world who's alive, and I bet you more people know Bob Ross than that person.
Oh,
So
100%,
yeah,
100%.
so he had, I think he contributed a lot to like art culture, and I think contribution to art culture now is like a lot harder than before, because even though he can influence like some people, it's still a very small sphere. Like it used to be in the past that art influences the whole country, like a whole segment of the country, like Renaissance, all the stuff like that. But modern day, like, do you see anybody who has like nearly as much influence as Bob Ross, or like somebody who's as or near famous Bob Ross, like in the art world?
No, I don't think so. Like, okay, here, let's do a real quick test. Do you know who Damien Hirst is? Does the name ring a bell?
You mentioned him to me like once or twice, but I don't know anything about him.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I could be behind on this. This might be like 10-year-old information, but he's, I
Mhm.
believe, like the richest. Actually, no.
No one's.
Jasper Johns. Jasper Johns is, I think, the like most famous living artist, or one of the most successful ones at any rate. And
Yeah.
yeah, you might have seen him. He did these weird pop culture or like pop
Hmm.
culture. I went to art school. I should know the difference. He did
Yeah.
pop art paintings of the American flag. I think they're really dumb, but they're
Huh.
literally just paintings of the flag.
Okay.
Um,
Wow. He
and I
knew
think
his
he's the
audience.
rich and Yeah, I mean, it was like, it's kind of like 80s bullshit art in my opinion. But, you know, it's just me. But he's the one who makes hundreds of millions of dollars off of the sale of a simple painting while I paint, you know, Borat.
Yeah.
So,
It's
I
a
guess
niche, man.
he got the last laugh.
Yeah, well, that's so. So he painted mostly flags, right? Or is it all flags?
He painted numbers too. So like one
Wait, get out of
and
here.
two and
The
lots
fuck?
of numbers. Yeah, yeah. So they're like brightly colored numbers. I mean, if you look up Jasper Johns, it's flags and numbers. He did other stuff too, but like that's what he's famous for.
Okay, so that's the richest artist in like the modern day era. Right?
Yes.
And
yes,
man,
100 millions might be wrong, but I think that is roughly where his paintings are. Yeah, hundreds of millions. He's like in his 90s now.
Mm-hmm. All that money keeps.
So I don't know. But Bob Ross, he probably is richer than Bob Ross, but because I don't think any like investment bankers did anything with Bob Ross's stuff, whereas Jasper Johns, he knows who to appeal to.
So one of Bob Ross's paintings would actually go for, I think, not that much more than a couple $1,000s. Like each individual one of his paintings goes for that much. So
even now?
Even now, yeah. Even now, like you find a Bob Ross painting. Like I actually, I a couple of days ago I went on this Bob Ross binge to see like how successful this guy was.
I was wondering how did Bob Ross come to this? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why I binged him, but like, yeah, I looked up all his information. I was like, if I can buy a Bob Ross painting, like I probably would if it's within my purchasing capabilities. And I found out it was way in reach than I thought. Like I would have thought it's like low key, like at the lowest, like several tens of thousands of dollars. But now you can get them
same. I would expect just for like cultural, like not novelty. Like almost collectability alone, somebody would be interested in it. But yeah, I guess so much of what determines if an artist is ultra expensive is their like, you know, their worth over time as just a way of like storing money. And it's like Bob Ross is not a big deal in, you know, quote unquote the art world. He's a big deal in pop culture. And
the bougie art world,
Yeah, people in the art world, they, you know, they roll a little bit different than the rest of us.
I think richer.
Drop $9 million on something, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty limited. But, you know, that's what like a Jeff Koons sells for, $9 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like you're fishing in a smaller pond, but if every fish you catch is like a huge-ass fucking like marlin or something. But Bob Ross is just, you know, he caught all the fishes in the big ocean, but they're not as big. Yeah, I think you're right, though. And the one thing it is that, like, he appeals to the common folk like us. He provided entertainment through his art, whereas most other art, like, there's almost sort of a higher mentality feel to it. Like if you want to appreciate art, it can't be with a common eye. You have to appreciate it from various perspectives, and sometimes you don't have that perspective if you're just like in a real poor every day. You're just worried about a paycheck. But I think people who have finer tastes and they have better things in life, like they have. Like they look for the finesse in like in things that nobody else would, and one of those things is paintings and how rare they are and their backstories and all that stuff. So, yeah, I guess
this might be cynical of me, but my kind of read on it has always been that if it is accessible to the common man, then it would not be interesting to ultra wealthy people. You know what I mean?
I think
it's
you're
like if something,
right.
Yeah, like if something is. If your art collection is a symbol of your status, then it would make perfect sense to invest in paintings that are confusing to people who don't kind of understand that inside baseball.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of why I see a lot of that as sort of bullshit. I mean, again, I would probably think differently if I was raking in that sweet, sweet art world money. But out of a combination of what I have to assume in myself is a certain degree of jealousy, but also a certain degree of like wanting art to be for people. the
Yeah.
people in a broader sense. Yeah, I think that kind of stuff is dumb. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's just the
Um,
reach of the art world is not actually that vast. It reaches great people, like influential people, rich people, and people with power. But really, like to the common people, to like the masses, the people who you wish to connect with, like it's really hard to do. And I think you're actually very much on point in the fact that Rich wants to buy things that are not accessible to the common people. And a good example, like I think an example of that is like if every single person were to be able to buy Gucci, then the price of Gucci would fall so far because rich people would just not want something that everyone else has because it's not unique enough.
right.
Yeah, why be rich if you're just using the same shit as everyone else, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not that nice looking. It's
Hmm.
nice looking, don't get me wrong, but yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I
Um,
always thought the design on Gucci is a little eh. It's like, dude, that's not. You're just slapping like CG or some on some shit. It's like, dude, that's not. Like I don't know, man. I've just seen better designs that more conform to the aesthetics. Whereas CG is literally like Gucci is literally just something you slapped on, like something with pretty good quality. Like I'll give them that, but not too good artistically. I feel like, and that's just my opinion. I know somebody else would be like, "Oh, Gucci is art," but like to me, to like a poor normal kid, like not really, buddy. Like not worth paying that much money for it. It's probably the same thing
yeah,
with
definitely.
paintings. Yeah, like I think a painting that's worth like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like if you ask common folk to assign a monetary value to that painting, it would be like $10, $20. So I think at one point I think actually art, how much it's worth is exactly like how much the person buying it is, like how much value he sees in it, right? If he's like, oh, I'm gonna buy it for $200,000, then that painting is worth $200,000. But if I just draw like a stick figure, post it online, and say $200,000 for this piece of painting, like is that actually worth $200,000? No, unless somebody pays for it. So yeah.
This is the funny dilemma for people who study like conceptual art in
Hmm.
college, for
Yeah.
instance. Because if nobody, like, okay, like if you're Marina Abramovich,
Hmm.
who's actually, I think, achieved some amount of like pop culture success. I think she was in like a Kanye thing. I don't remember exactly.
Hmm.
Then, yeah, sure, you can make money off of performance art, which is not a play. It's not like
Hmm.
a coherent thing that people will reenact and watch. It's something like sitting in a museum for 12 hours a day and staring at a person in a chair across from you. And it's really tough to make that like a
What?
monetizable thing. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Performance art, I think, is like the biggest bullshit. But then it's really interesting because I always think like,
Oh.
okay, sure, there's some amount of like intellect to
Hmm.
the people that get successful at that. But then it's so funny to think of people studying that in college and then just becoming like art professors because like how on earth are you supposed to become a professional at that? Like that's such a crapshoot.
Right.
At the very least, even though I'm not going to make the big bucks with
Hmm.
making like a painting,
Right.
there's a certain amount of I think just intrinsic value to it when
Hmm.
people look at it because they think like, oh well, that looks like something, and not in this particular instance because I'm painting Borat. But if there's a certain amount of what I think of like intrinsic beauty, then yeah, people will like it regardless of the context. But yeah, it gets into an interesting spot with really famous contemporary artists where the validation or certain tastemakers deeming something as good is so much of what makes something succeed or fail. And I'm
Hmm.
not judging each artist's expression. If somebody feels like that's the way they want to express themselves, I'm not about to tell them like, oh, that's dumb and bad, don't do it.
Right.
But because there's less intrinsic value, it makes it much more of a, I think, I mean, this is speculative because I'm not in that world, but it makes
Hmm.
it much more kind of like a crapshoot whether or not you'll become at all successful.
Right. I mean, like, here's the thing, though. I think art holds intrinsic value in the fact that some people who have better art skills, as in, like, in the world of painting, in the world of just drawing, if you're a better artist, obviously your final product is better. And if you were to go by intrinsic value, then the person with the highest skills and the better drawing gets the more money. But in the current realistic art world, that's not the case. Is the person who has the most story or the most marketing or the most connections, they are the actually ones who are successful. So I think the market, like the economy for art is just like super twisted shifted into something else. And it's almost at one point, it's not about art, it's about prestige. It's about the fact that I have this thing. Like, this thing might look good, it might not look good, but like, even if it doesn't look good, because it has prestige, it's worth a lot of money. And I think that's why a lot of like really, really freaking talented artists like yourself, with like a plethora, like just a wealth of skills honed throughout the years, will not do as successful as others. It's a little unfair, because when you think about it, in sports, right? You're a better baseball player, you get paid more. You're better football players, you get paid more. But in the art world now, it's like, hey, you know more people, you get paid more, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, so there's things I agree with about that and things I disagree with about that. Mm-hmm. So,
do tell.
In the sense that there is... so I do think that a certain amount of skill is important purely from the standpoint of like giving you a bigger set of tools for expression. Mm-hmm. But the way that I always like to think about it is like, I really love a lot of music that other people would think is just garbage. And, you know, like every generation you get that thing of the previous generation being like, oh, this generation's music sucks.
Yeah.
Our generation's music was good. And you can chase that back indefinitely. You know, like when you compare like Led Zeppelin, who I think is amazing, to like a classical, to like Paganini, they pale in comparison in terms of their ability to play the instruments. But at a certain point, it doesn't really matter, because the connection that the people listening to Zeppelin have is strong enough that there's enough skill there that the musicians can express an interesting idea, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a really interesting idea being expressed, and even if Jimmy Page isn't the most amazing guitarist, he's amazing enough and is really distinctive. And I think art's something similar, where I think I can get stuck in a kind of like skill rabbit hole where I'll get really into something and then I'll forget that at the end of the day, the thing that separates something like art and sports is you're expressing something. And when an artist gets successful, it's largely because they're expressing something that really resonates with other people. So you can have, and this happens all the time, you have like skill junkies that are amazing painters, but they just don't have interesting thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, I think of it in like movies. Like there are, I'm sure, plenty of directors who have an amazing grasp on, you know, like cinematography, the history of film.
Yeah.
I guess what I think of as like the technical side of filmmaking, but they might not have a good idea for a movie. And at the end of the day, that's the thing that people are interested in.
Yeah. Gotta have a whole picture,
the shot.
Yeah.
Right, like the shot composition will subconsciously make people like a movie more. But the thing that really makes people like a movie is when there's something that like resonates with them. And it's the same thing with art. And so I think with a lot of contemporary art, there's a lot of stuff that's bullshit, and it's all just sort of like insider stuff that the public has no access to and no understanding to, and it's really unfair and stupid. But at the same time, I also think that if we were to value nothing but like skill and training, that could lead down a very boring path. You know, like something that people. And actually, that's what happened in the 19th century. So this is getting a little granular with this stuff. But
let's do it.
The thing that kicked off. Okay, so when you think of like old paintings, like things you see in the museum from like the 1500s, like the Renaissance, you think like, wow, these are really incredible. And then at some point in between then and now, something changed. And we had hundreds and hundreds of years between the Renaissance and now where painters were across the board really incredible. And like the famous artists were kind of synonymous with like skill, right?
Yeah. So there was a time.
That changed in the 19th. Yeah, 100%. I mean, they made interesting paintings too. Like a Rembrandt painting isn't all about skill, but it is coupled with like incredible capacity. But what ended up changing was in the 19th century, which is like Impressionism. So when you think of like Claude Monet or Vincent van Gogh, those are artists that they're still good painters, but when you compare them to like Renaissance painters, it's like a Van Gogh painting isn't as well done as a Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Like, I think we can agree.
Skill-wise, it's leagues apart,
Right, there's something expressive there, but it is definitely not the Sistine Chapel in terms of the like facility and capacity. So and I think I'm getting this right here. Again, I'm no art historian. I had to take classes for it during my MFA, so this is not layman. This isn't like a layman knowledge, but also I'm by no means an expert on this stuff. But yeah, in the 19th century, art training became way more widely available. You had way more artists, way more art schools, and the system for teaching art started to get a lot more systematized. Exactly that. Like in the Renaissance, how it would work is, well, there weren't that many artists. It was a luxury product, and the church commissioned everything. So there weren't that many artists, and if you wanted to learn art, you went and studied directly with a master. So like Michelangelo, when he was a 13-year-old, went to live, I think to live with the Ghirlandaio, and he studied under this one guy and helped this one dude make his religious murals. And that's how you would learn. In the 19th century, they started opening art schools, like how we think of it today, where like you're not studying under a master and helping him make his paintings. You go to classes with like a nude figure and you learn how to paint it.
Ooh. I'd go to learn art just because the nude figures. I mean, just how much... I don't think they had like printed porn. Like they didn't have like media porn back in the day. So I mean, the thing they had to do was
it's a whole different topic, but there definitely was erotic art.
Definitely.
The Japanese had that on lock. Anyways.
Oh, hell yeah. Can't beat them.
But yeah, so you started getting art schools. There's much more of a system for learning, and you don't get as much of like the idiosyncrasy that you get when it's a single master training a group of like 20 people.
Right.
It's like a whole curriculum that the entirety of Europe and America was kind of following. And so as a result, you get a lot more kind of like, you get way more skilled artists, people who are educated in how to do it, but you get a lot more monotony in the art, just because the schools are disseminating this much more sort of like canonized material on how to draw, how to paint.
Right.
And so I think as a result of that, the art got a lot more... formulaic is probably the right word. Beautiful paintings, but a little bit more kind of like formulaic in their conception.
Yeah.
Like the ideas started, it was only acceptable if you wanted to get into the big art competitions, you had to do a certain kind of painting on a certain kind of topic. And so then there was a group of artists like Manet and Monet. They're different people, but their names are almost the same.
I was like, I didn't know it was pronounced Manet, and then he said Monet. I was like, oh, they're different people.
No, yeah, there's Edward Manet and Claude Monet, and basically like the Impressionists is what people think of them as, who wanted to make a different kind of painting, what they felt was a more real painting, like less idealized. Like it was really popular to make paintings of like nymphs and cherubs and what people think of as kind of like saccharine art. And so you get a bunch of artists that wanted to make paintings of, of peasants and people, chicken potatoes and stuff that was, I guess, what would have been deemed like uglier at the time, less idealistic. And so that kicks off the whole modernist art movement. And then basically that just sets in motion this ever-renewing cycle of people saying, well, the current status quo is boring. I want to do something more interesting. And every decade, there's kind of like an arms race of like, well, I want to make something more new and more interesting. And, by the end of the 19th century, art training has been kind of, for the most part, thrown out because people have decided that, like, oh, that leads to boring paintings, which it can, but it's also important. And then by the time you get to the 1980s, you're getting people like Jasper Johns making paintings of letters, and that sells for millions of dollars. And then there's nowhere that you can get art training. So it's this kind of like weird butterfly effect from people like Monet just wanting to have freedom from the stricture of like this really rigid studio system in the 19th century, and then that leading to a stigma against the idea of making a painting that looks realistic, which is weird. Like that's just a strange series of events to have happen.
Well, I mean, it sort of makes sense. Though. Like don't you think it's because when like you said, when everyone had to start like under a master back in the Renaissance to become good at art, it was less popular, and there was a lot less art like going around. It was more popular because there was less of it. It's like the Gucci of the prior days. But like when everyone had the academies, it became more accessible, and more people had the art, and maybe not the imagination, but they had the artistic skills to make all these paintings. So now all of a sudden, like paintings that depict normal things, everyday things, like objects, people, like landscape, those became oversaturated. So now all of a sudden they're just like chunks of it coming out, and it's all of a sudden less valuable because there's more of it. And Monet, like the Impressionists, what they did was that they broke away from the mold. So number one, they're not painting things that are already accessible. They're not just making another painting to add to the pile of similar paintings. They came out with this whole new thing that nobody else had. And because it was new, because it was a new path, it was unique, and there was less of it, which is the most important thing, and it was also artistically sound. So like all those things combined, with the most important thing being that they're the few that did it, made them more popular. And I think that's one of the actually the crucial aspects of being successful in the art world, and it is the people who are really, really famous. They're doing things that nobody did before, and after they do it, a bunch of people copy them, but they'll never be as good as the original because that idea, when other people copy it, is no longer original. You want that originality. That's why like Jackson Pollock, like people like those guys, Andy Warhol, they do these weird-ass things and they make money from it, is because when they did the weird-ass thing, there were literally almost nobody doing the same weird-ass thing at that level. That's why they're good. And I think that's why a lot of modern day artists who have really good skills suffers, because it's dime a dozen. There's a lot of people with really great skills, and even if your skill is the top of the top of the top, the regular people can't exactly decipher the difference between the best painting in the world and the 10th best painting in the world. There's right, yeah, and even those who can decipher it, they won't know the value of it. They don't know that the guy who got the best painting in the world did 20 more years of skill, or they have like this proficiency for they were born the natural artist, the second coming of Michelangelo. Like they won't be able to tell all that just from the skill of it. So I think modern day, if you're doing things that everyone else is doing, and there's a school full of people doing the same shit, you have two paths. Number one, you know a lot of people, right? Your family's rich, you know a lot of people. That's path number one. Through connections, your painting gets assigned value. Number two, you break that mold. Doesn't matter who you know, you do something that nobody else does that catches the attention of people, and that's how you make your paintings like more valuable. Like other people start assigning value to it. You can't assign value to your own painting, and that I think, well, you can in a certain sense, but would people buy it? But if other people agree with the value that you set, or they set a value for it, that's when I think you become really, really successful. Otherwise, it's just drawings on a board, and there are many drawings on a board in the world, but what makes yours so special is the specialness that takes it. But the individual difference in skill, I think, is truly sad, but it's not appreciated enough.
Yeah, well, that's super insightful. I mean, there are definitely artists that are in the camp of, like, successful contemporary artists who are in the camp of, like, they know people and have finessed their way into having value. Like, right. You know, again, this is just throwing out names that mean nothing, but, like, Tracy Amin is this artist who I think is just... I mean, she seems really egotistical and mean, so I don't feel bad trash-talking her. But I think her art is literally garbage. Like, like she will take like installations of like garden and gallery, jungle. She make the sign what it is. It's just that it says that. And how that's art. I think that's kind of bullshit, but she knew someone, that she knew some dealer, she knew some collector, she was charming to somebody that assigned her paintings and installations and whatever, sculptures, value in a way that now she's like made a career off of it. And then there's, you know, speaking of British artists, there's another artist named Jenny Saville who does these paintings of like, they're these amazingly done enormous paintings of these kind of like sort of twisted, almost like grotesque looking fat women, and they're really good paintings and they're really interesting. And no one, you know, back in like the 90s when she was blowing up, it's super common to emulate now, but nobody had ever seen anything like it. And through that alone, she became, I think she's like the richest female artist in the world. Like she's, or at least one of the most highly coveted ones. And yeah, that was through like pure innovation. Like she just made art that was really interesting and that people really resonated with. So yeah, that I would say that's like a good way to think of it. Those like two paths.
Yeah, no people.
And it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and you know, Aidan, you're a pretty good looking guy. I know you probably denied this, but yeah, you're a pretty good looking guy. So if you do want to sleep your way into a position where you get your art sold, I think you have the potential to do that. So you know, hey, like you're a creative guy, but you can always fall back on just selling your body for to sell your art. You know.
I think I was going to say, I guess I would have to. I think that's tougher to do because I think there are fewer. So basically, it would have to always be with a guy. You know what I mean?
Oh, so you've thought about this?
Think,
so you've done your research.
No, it's not. It's not so much that I've thought about it, but I think with the way the world works in general, there are just inherently going to be fewer women in power that will bargain position with you for sexual favors.
That's
so
true.
It's always going to be a guy. So either it's going to be a girl sleeping with a guy or a guy sleeping with a guy.
Yeah,
and that's definitely a thing. There are definitely people who go out of their way and say like, "Hey, I'll give you a reach around if you give me a show or introduce me to
right."
So and so, yeah, that's a thing for sure. Probably less than like Hollywood, but
yeah, definitely happens.
But there's definitely there's some overlap there.
It's like, hey, you sell my artwork, and I'll let you Jackson Pollock all over my face and chest, dude. Do it.
Ooh, I wonder. So you know how like high schoolers make really dumb like, come over, let's study anatomy, kind of like dumb. Really stupid wordplay. Like, I wonder how often that's happened with like art world tomfoolery. That Jackson Pollock line might just work.
Exactly. I stole that from Guardians of the Galaxy, a Marvel movie. I thought it was a great line. I've been stealing it ever since, and it's great.
Oh, that is a good line. Snap! All right,
it's a very good line. But yeah, so basically, actually, that's the thing too. So if artwork actually now I think has another medium that can make it successful, and I follow a Facebook meme group called like art memes, where they take like old art like Michelangelo's and they make memes out of it. And at one point after I saw that, I got an inspiration, so I started making memes out of your paintings, and several of them I think are are pretty well done if I say so myself. But I think that's another way now, like for you to break through into pop culture, because if it gets passed around like Bad Luck Brian or or SpongeBob is already popular. If it gets passed around as a meme, like more people like pay attention to it, like that's your gateway to the top, man. And if you get a lot of attention, like the rich people are gonna come calling, because that's what's there, man. So Aidan, maybe you just got to start drawing like a really grotesque, well, not grotesque fat woman, grotesque fat man. Yeah.
That could work.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing yet, but if people are into grotesque fat women, I think maybe they're also into grotesque fat men. We live in a society where everyone's equal, gender equality. It doesn't matter what. And then you just do that. Maybe paint like transgender people or I don't know, things of that nature. Something that's not been focused on. Are there a lot of painters of transgenders? Like maybe just cross-dressers, things like that.
So I know there are a lot of. So it's a big craze right now. There's a big call for gay artists and black artists. Like those are kind of, I think, the two groups that galleries can't get enough of at the moment.
Interesting.
And obviously, you have to be a good artist to get anywhere, or an interesting artist in some respect. But yeah, I definitely think at the moment there's more of an emphasis within like the contemporary art world on getting more gay artists and black artists, which makes perfect sense. It's
the same everywhere else.
Like the top echelon is still dominated by white guys. Like the top. I remember looking this up with Xanthi. I think when you look at a list of like the 100 most successful artists, you have to get down to like 42 before there's a woman.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, it's like it's still very dude heavy at the top, but I think in kind of like the mid zone, there's a lot more of a demand for, I guess, what you think of like intersectional minorities. But then I think what's also really important in art, and I don't agree with this, but it is a Well, okay, I guess it's more complicated than saying I agree with it or don't agree with it. But because I understand where people are coming from with it, but I think with the current kind of meta, the notion is that you should like stay in your lane. Like if you're a white person, you'd have to have a very finessed way of working if you wanted to put black people in your paintings, which sounds ridiculous, but it does get as like cut and dry as that. Like there's an instructor at the academy that got in a lot of trouble because she put up like her show was primarily painting like portraits of black people, and she was white.
Oh, okay. Wait,
and so I don't agree with. Yes, I mean. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but yeah, effectively what people got angry about was that she was a white woman painting black people, which I thought was a little bit unfair.
That doesn't make sense. Why can't you paint black people? It's more racist if you think about that. It's like white people can only paint white people. It's like, what? Why can't you paint black people, man? Is there something wrong with black people? They can't paint them, bro? Oh, I think you told me about this. You actually have told me about this, and is that the argument is that they think she's trying to profit off of like black people, like black culture painting black people. Like she's trying to profit off of that. That's what the problem was, right?
I think a lot of it is people. I don't know exactly what the argument was. I probably should know this. I'm going to talk about it, but if I kind of take a guess. I would guess that the reason people don't like that idea is just the same reason why people get angry at like Eminem. Just the idea that if it's like you're, I guess, trying to not pretend to be a black person, but you're like trying to force your way or gain access to a culture that you've repressed for hundreds of years for the sake of being cooler. Or something along those lines, which is not true for this particular artist, but I guess that's the thing that people that don't know her, that see her paintings, that got upset about it, would have thought, or maybe that's what I'm guessing.
I mean, the whole thing sounds like more of a reflection on the people actually who have a problem with her. I think those people are the ones who are like truly afraid that their racist selves would be like shown to the publics. Because when you think about it, you're an artist, you capture things, and the object you capture are the objects that capture your fancy. Like, sure, you can make an argument that somebody, because they want to make money, they're painting only black people. But again, like, you're using artist skills and their choice in picture and you're painting it. There are plenty of, like, white people painted black people. And I don't think there's anything in the laws that says if you paint a lot of black people, like for every 5 black people you paint, there has to be one guy in there. Like that's not a law. So I think people were trying to stir some controversy up there. And I think that's all there is to it. I don't think there's really anything wrong with it. If you want to paint somebody, paint somebody. Like maybe you have a fascination with black people and you paint them. Maybe you just want to make money because you think painting black people gets you more sales. I think that's also fair for you to just do that. I mean, you're not taking the food out of the mouths of little crying black babies, and you're not really hurting anybody. Like, are black people who paint black pictures like not selling as well or something? It's just, even if that's the case, like I feel like it's not her fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is an argument that I don't fully understand, and it's one of those things where I am sort of timid about putting out an opinion one way or the other on it, just because I have not looked into anything about it thoroughly enough to feel like I should have a really strong opinion. So I'll usually just defer to whatever the current kind of like woke standard is, I guess. But I think within art there's a big concern with the idea of exoticizing people, which so like the really. I think this is sort of, in some ways, blown out of proportion because people really like using this one particular movement. But there was a movement called Orientalism during the 19th century where artists from Europe were kind of new to the Islamic world. Like, that was very much a novelty. So they would go to, the Islamic world and make paintings of the people and, like, harems and, like prison guards and Islamic robes with the various stuff they had. And I always thought those paintings were cool looking. I always thought I just liked the way they look.
Yeah, harems are cool, dude.
I thought they were really well done. I thought the painting's execution was amazing. I thought it was fun. For me, being primarily familiar with like European art, I thought it was cool seeing like a European artist paint things that weren't from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, kind of going to the MFA that you hear people talk about when it comes to race and art is they'll talk about that movement and say like Orientalism was a problematic movement because it was people that didn't understand the culture kind of bulldozing in there, making a bunch of paintings of what they saw and making a lot of assumptions about, or it's the same thing with like cowboys and Indians and Western art.
Right.
So there's a beef that people have with like the depiction of Native Americans and Western art and feeling like there's a certain kind of romanticism and dishonesty in it,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that like I understand where those people are coming from, especially because like I can't quite relate myself because I've never had to deal with that kind of issue. But yeah, I think that was another big issue that people took with that art is the idea of like, oh, you're exoticizing someone, like you're white, so you couldn't understand, but you're making these pictures. And again, like my instinct is to say like I don't feel like that makes sense, but then also I don't want to be too quick to automatically say like, oh, that's a dumb thought.
Yeah.
I
get you, and I understand.
Is people probably think that because somebody smart at some point said, "Hey, wait a minute, like that's kind of fucked up," So I'm assuming it's not pure mob vitriol. I think it works this way for most arguments, where like at some point somebody smart said something that made sense about that, and then it just gets kind of carried off by people who don't fully understand the argument that they're supporting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens in both directions. So I usually like to think like, okay, there's probably some amount of validity to that idea. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, but I do also think that can, like, this is, man, sorry, I'm going on like a big monologue.
Yeah,
so this was
This
was a big recent scandal in the art world. There was this artist, I hate his art, from the 80s named Philip Guston, who did like these kind of weird, kind of crude looking cartoony paintings. I wouldn't even call them cartoony. I just think they're ugly. But he's a big deal, like very important. And he did these series of paintings that were super sarcastic, very ironic, of KKK members. And it was supposed to be making fun of the KKK. Like, if you were to look at the paintings, you'd be like, oh, these are so over the top that, like, this is definitely supposed to be parody. But they're from, like, 30 years, or even longer, like 40 years ago. And so there was a retrospective at a major museum. Or actually, it was going to be, like, I think a traveling show that was going to go to a bunch of different museums of this work, and it was shut down because a bunch of people protested it because they saw KKK hats in it and said this is racist, which is ridiculous because it was such an over-the-top series of pictures that you're like, there's no way that, like, this is clearly parody. Satire. Yeah, it's satire. But yeah, it got shut down and the museum caved because they didn't want a huge scandal on their hands surrounding Philip Guston's paintings, and I thought that was kind of bullshit. So when it comes to that kind of thing, I'm like, I don't think that kind of like degree of censorship makes sense, especially when it's not even censoring an opinion that's distasteful. It's someone who's literally agreeing with them but doing it in a humorous way, right?
Well, there's two...
And I think it's just because he's... Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, no. I was about to say... Yeah, no. It's good. Just like on that thing that you just said, I think there's two reactions to it, right? Because it's not a hard censor, as in the government saying, if you do this, I'm going to throw you in jail. It's not a hard censor. It's a soft censor, and it's the people canceling it. And in that situation, you have two options. Number one, you cave to the masses, you don't do it. Number two, double down, dude. Double down and you do it. Like you paint like KKK and like obvious satire, and then you open it up, and then history will look back on that moment. And instead of saying this is bullshit, shouldn't be censored, they could be saying that, wow, this person, even though there's a lot of people protesting it, and the gallery was just like, you know what, fuck it, this is in the name of art, we're gonna open it, and it was a very brave moment. Like, I think when you look back on history, and when people had a lot of time to think about it and analyze it, people will realize it is parody. I don't think if they open that gallery that that people would like later, like many years later, look back on it as like, well, those guys are racist, it's depicting KKK. Like there will be articles about their like explaining why this is parody, and I think that's an important choice. I think some people who stick it out for something so obviously that's satire, and they keep it and they go against the wishes of these dumb people, if history is going to treat them very, very kindly. And I think that was more the fault of the gallery. Well, not a fault even. It's the fact that they caved that made this incident like a regrettable thing instead of like a story of pushing art through for the sake of art, even though the contents are controversial, the message and the true like inspiration behind it was not. So yeah, they diverged, and that's why it's not good. So Aidan, if you want to paint something controversial, stick with it. Like when a lot of people are like, "Oh, you can't paint black people if you're white." Like, no, I'm gonna keep painting this shit. You know, I'm not trying to profit off of them. It just, I'm interested in painting black people. That's why I do it, bitch. So why don't you step off? And then I think that would actually get you a pretty big following by yourself, because when people protest you painting black people and you stop painting black people, that's the end of that story. Like that's it. Like you're somebody who caved. But if you double down, Aidan, like you're gonna become a legend. If you're afraid of death, you will never live. But if you die, you will live forever.
At the moment, I don't think I have any particularly controversial interests in what I like painting. I like painting my girlfriend.
Ooh, that's nice.
Most of it.
What are we talking about? Like clothes? We're talking about like body style?
My entire senior thesis was just paintings of my girlfriend, and I don't think that's super controversial.
Okay.
I guess it's the male gaze. There's a little bit of controversy there.
I don't know. You have a very attractive girlfriend, though. Yeah. So if anyone is wondering what Aidan's girlfriend looks like, look on the cover of this photo. She's in the lower left corner, and Aidan's a very good artist, but honestly, that photo maybe doesn't even do her justice.
That's one of the ugliest paintings I've made of her. I tried really hard on it.
Because I think that's very, like her. That's very, well, like from my, I don't know her as well as you do, but like from my perspective, it actually looks pretty similar, and that picture actually looks like very, very like artistic, like it's depicting like an attractive person. So hey, if she's more attractive in real life, buddy, you gotta do a better painting next time. Maybe that'll be the subject of the next episode. Yeah.
Maybe I should.
Because you're doing a very great job on Borat right now. I mean, I'm looking at him as like,
I thank you.
Jagshemash. How much?
It's funny. I feel. I think probably in the grand scheme of things, you're probably right that the museum should have just stuck it out and said, like, this is satire. You got to deal with it.
Yeah.
But I understand. I understand too, because it's not like, it's not like a thriving industry that can definitely survive. Like museums are kind of like cultural artifacts that aren't generating tons of money, and they live off of like donors and grants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, if a museum is deemed controversial and they're surviving off of donors, like, you know how this goes. Like, people go for the throat when it comes to finances. So, like, I could totally see the museum in their head playing out this, like, nightmare scenario of doubling down and then having people target the celebrities that donate to them and say, why are you donating to the Whitney Museum when they have these KKK paintings up? Are you racist? And then the donor pulls out, and then the museum folds. I can understand why the museum wouldn't want to test that, because it's a fragile, institution at the end of the day. Like, it's not a super ultra robust money making machine that can withstand some controversy. Like, I get it, but no, you're probably right that I think in the grand scheme of things, they probably should have stuck to their guns and said, "No, these paintings are clever satire mocking the KKK." And
Well, actually,
You
real
should just read
quick,
up on it.
from your perspective, the perspective that just shared from the museum, like it's very reasonable that they didn't do it because, like you said, money is an issue. So money really stops it,
Yeah,
which sucks
yeah, big
because,
time.
yeah, like what I meant, I think with them sticking to their guns is that it would make a better story for it. Like financially, it might have tanked them, but sometimes that makes a better point in history. And just in the grand scheme of things, in the bigger picture, it probably would have been the quote unquote right move. But self preservation is real. Like you can't expect them to fire all their staffs who depend on their salary at the museum, like all the people who like to go to that museum. You can't sacrifice all that on a throwaway gesture, on something that, like, very well, most likely will not turn out like how you hope it's going to turn out. So I definitely get it, and it sucks that that's a reality that people have to really cater to the masses because that's where they get their money. And it sucks that like the masses like to prey on these instances where it's so much easier to not understand what's going on and just to latch on this bandwagon of PCness and just the correct side of culture. Oh, it's KKK. Well, anything with KKK is taboo. It's like no. It's like if you are making a good point, but the content contains KKK, I think it's good. It's like Quentin Tarantino, saying the N word like a couple hundred times in his movies. It's like, yo, like you can't say the N word on film, you can't say it on the camera, you can't do it if you're white, but most, I think every single white person in that movie has said that word. So yeah, it's all about like I think how much you really want to stick to it, how much do you believe in it, because I think the museum workers, the people who made the decision to close it down, ultimately what they cared about most, and nobody's going to blame them for this, is to feed their families, is to have their lifestyle, like to continue living the way they have, like and to provide.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I completely
Yeah, and
get
you
that.
know,
Yeah.
I'm for the most part, I'm all down for most of the woke stuff, but that was one where I was like, oh, come on, like these paintings are agreeing with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Why are you shutting it down?
Yeah.
And you know what? In the grand scheme of things, I don't like Philip Guston's paintings, so my life isn't worse for them not being exhibited. But it's more just like on principle. I was kind of like, oh, come on.
Yeah, exactly. The
Anyway, sorry,
message.
that was a bit of a diatribe. I don't know how interesting that is.
I found it pretty interesting
As
because,
a
like,
general topic.
yeah, well, because number one, like, I don't know a lot of art history. I have no idea what the controversies surrounding art. I actually, if you were to ask me, does art world have a lot of controversies? I, like a layman, would have said no, and I would have been wrong because I just don't know of any like controversies, but they for sure exist. So yeah, it's very interesting learning about it, and it's far more interesting to know that there are so much more barriers to success than I actually was aware about. Like I know in the art world you can't be a millionaire like off the bat, or it's really really hard to even make like a really good living off of it. But I always thought there's just oversaturation in the market. I didn't know that there was also a lot of like PCness, like political correctness, or just that kind of shit, like money stuff that goes in it.
Big time,
Yeah.
big time. I mean, it's like it's an extension of like academia, and academia is like on the cutting edge of stuff about race and culture and
Yeah.
like the stuff that's becoming mainstream now was like par for the course in like 2012 in like universities. And yeah, it's the same thing with the art world. Like the art world is way ahead of the curve compared to general culture when it comes to what people think as being PC. And I'm not saying that as in like I have an issue with any of that. I think in a lot of instances it's a really good thing. But yeah, there are definitely instances where I think it gets ultimately like harmful to people,
Yeah, there's good aspects, but there contains bad aspects. It's like the jury system, like they catch mostly criminals, but every once in a while there'll be an innocent man who pays a price that he definitely did not deserve. And that's the same thing with PC culture, except way more innocent people. I feel like it's just screwed over, and like their hard work towards their success, their expression of their own feelings, and the way they're expressing it is suppressed. Is because there's a group of people who can't understand it. It's not even most people. It's just a small group of very loudmouth individuals like think it's their crusade to stop something that they themselves view as not right. And I don't even think they really believe in what they're saying. I think they're just working themselves up and lashing themselves onto a cause that makes themselves look good for like maybe the 10 minutes that existed, but it would really impact someone else's lives a lot. But, you know, it's part of advocacy, right? Because all you need really is just understanding what it is. And that takes 10 seconds, right? But they won't do it.
Right. I think a lot of public, like big controversies in the art world, I mean, this could be totally off base, but I'm pretty sure in a lot of those instances, it's not people from inside that community. It's people from outside it that don't totally get what's going on, who, again, see a KKK hood and assume that it's racist.
Yeah, you can't even draw it. It's taboo, really, bro. Yeah.
Right, when, like, it's a joke, you know, like... Yeah.
There's a message behind it.
I don't know.
There's a reason behind it. He's not drawing the KKK to worship them. He's drawing them to show that they're bad, to satirize.
And it's not even like trying to smuggle racism in. You know, it's like full blown irony.
Yeah. The artist doubled down, but the gallery didn't, which. You know, not blaming the gallery, but it is quite a shame, I think.
I mean, I think Philip Guston might be dead. Like, I'm pretty sure he's no longer alive.
Yeah. Well, somebody has to carry on. For a while. Yeah, somebody has to carry on his legacy, bro. That torch of painting, like KKK in a satirical way, and I don't see anyone else doing it, Aidan. So, you know, as we talked about in the beginning of the show, if you want to break into the art world, you're gonna have to do it with something fresh, exciting, and unique. So, you know.
Doing that. You want to pose for some photos for me in a KKK?
You know, that would be interesting. Like if I, as a minority, posed as a KKK.
I'm not doing.
No, let's entertain this idea for a second, though. Like, what would be the message there? Is you know, do I buy in this? Like, is this another discourse on racism? Am I just wearing white robes to say that, hey, we shouldn't assign power to white robes and white hoods? Because the very fact that we're banning people drawing things that depict people wearing white hoods and white, like, no matter the context, no matter the message, we're banning this. It means that we're assigning power, we're assigning value to these like shapes of clothing. Like, I think the deep way to get rid of hatred, like absolutely in society, is just to not assign value to it. There was a comedian back in, I think, the 60s or like 60s or 70s or something. It was during like the civil rights movement, who made this bit, and he was on stage and he asked the crowd, hey, are there any, like, he used N-word, are there any N-words around here? Everyone's dead silent. And then he was like, really? And he just asked this for like a solid minute, and it was dead quiet, super awkward. It's like, hey, any N-words out there? I see some N-words back there. And then I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, hey, there's another, and he used the K-word to describe Jewish people, and then he like went through literally all the racial slurs that there are. And he keeps going. It's like, well, yeah, so the reason I said it a lot is because I refuse to assign value, and I refuse to assign power to that word. If everyone starts saying it without any, like, bad intent, eventually that word loses power, and when that word comes up again, it would not cause harm. So in the grand scheme of things, like, his argument was maybe it's better for us to just use racial slurs, but very important to not assign any ill feelings towards it. Like, it's a descriptive, it's just a word that describes something, and the more we're afraid of saying it, the more that the longer racism is gonna be part of our mind. We're aware of something that we're afraid of, and what we're afraid of is always in the back of our mind. So maybe I, as an Asian person dressing up as a KKK, is a way to, you know, maybe starting the transition from people no longer assigning fear and hatred towards like the letters, the 3 Ks put together, or maybe like the white robes. You know what I mean? So maybe it is a way for you to make money, Aidan. That could be your message right there. I think we just struck gold. Yeah.
I think that would be a practical solution to commit career suicide real early on.
Yeah, I don't have the best ideas, but, you know, I'll always give you an explanation as to why I came up with it.
Yeah, I think that would be the equivalent of you jumping off a high building.
Yeah. But hey, you might land on a pile of gold, in which case you would break all your bones and still die. But hey, at least you die surrounded by gold instead of surrounded by poor shit, you know.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting though, and I think there exists a possibility that people who paint truly controversial things would actually make it. Like maybe. maybe like somebody who just paints like Hitler, right? Like, but whenever he paints Hitler, he gives him like a very like just lazy eye or some shit. Just like normal picture of Hitler looking like this, but one of his eyes is pointing inwards, and it's like, yeah, Hitler is just, I'm just making fun of him, or maybe the lazy eye is not a good one. Maybe it's just, you know, hey, just paints him with really tight pants and just like just making just making fun of him, you know, like some kind of satire.
This might be ignorance on my part. I don't feel like there is, at least not that I can like think of. I don't feel like there is a big market for like. There aren't a bunch of people doing like really controversial things in the art world, and I think that might be just because the nature of the community would just like really like. I don't think that there would be any demand for it in the sense that like, okay, people who have like radio shows or comedians that really like thrive off of controversy, there's a big market of people on the internet that can access that. I don't think for something like painting, which is a weird anachronistic thing that already is kind of relegated to high society, I don't know that there's a big enough market of people that want to hear or see really controversial paintings for that to be a viable like career strategy. I could be totally wrong, but when I think about it, I'm like, I don't feel like there are contemporary American painters that do really controversial things. I think it's like there's a very locked in status quo, and people kind of chase trends 5 years at a time until the trend changes, you know?
Actually, on the topic of controversy, you know the French comic artist Charlie?
Oh, is this the Charlie Hebdo?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was a publication. I don't think Charlie was the name of the guy. I think the whole newspaper publication was Charlie Hebdo.
Before that person got unfortunately killed, he did things that were controversial, and I think I think when he was still painting that, when he was still alive, and he was releasing those artists depicting like people like terrorist organizations and just terrorist characters, right? Not to worship him, but to make fun.
I think it was Muhammad.
Right.
Muhammad was the thing that got got people hot and bothered, you know.
Right, and then eventually led to him being dead, but. On the other hand of that, I think we have to also acknowledge the fact that because he did something controversial, he stuck with it. Now we know his name. Like, granted, we know his name because he died. But still, though, even before that, when it became controversial, his name was like put everywhere. And for a brief period of time, more people than ever knew about this guy and his artwork. And I think there's no such market for it. Like, there's no stable for those kind of art, but I think to make a big splash is always important, and sometimes controversies can create big splashes, but how do you go from there, how do you manage that, I think is great, and what kind of splash you make is also very, very important. So yeah, I guess to summarize, like, my point is just whatever you do, make it something that grabs people's attention. Like sometimes your expressive feelings, things you want to say, is not all that controversial, but like every now and then you have something you truly believe in that just that you just won't drop. And I think it's very important for everyone to just for some people to not cave into the masses at that point. Maybe double down, maybe get controversial, and sure, you might be creating career suicide, but I think you'll make a bigger splash than if you cave. You know.
I might be splitting hairs here, but Charlie Hebdo was much more in like the news media sphere than the art world sphere. I genuinely think that it is like, and again, it's not like I'm saying like, oh, there are all these controversial things I want to paint, but I'm too scared. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
It's just not your interest. I just genuinely think that there is not at least at the present moment. And again, this could be totally ignorant and out of touch for me to say, but I don't feel like there is a market for controversy in that sphere in the same way where, like, if you were a college professor and you were like, we're going to do a class talking about race and IQ, like you would get shut down. Like there would be no like, let's have a discussion and see like what this person has to say. Like that topic would be so off limits that it would be suicide. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's a similar kind of thing as far as that goes. Whereas if somebody wanted to write like a podcast or a book on the idea of race and IQ, sure, there'll be people who buy that. But when it comes to something like the art world, I just don't think that that's a thing that in the present like climate of it would be even remotely a good idea in any form. Like I think it would be nothing but suicide. Like it would just shut your career down. There'd be no upside. It would just be a non-starter. Who knows? Maybe I'm totally wrong about that. But I just feel like at the moment, the way the culture is looking, and it could just be that I just don't know. There are some artists that might be doing something really crazy and controversial that are riding that wave and making it work, but I just don't know them.
Right. I think I actually see your point, and I actually agree with it. And it's the fact that just because something is controversial and can make a splash doesn't mean that you should do it, and doesn't mean that you'll make a splash. Something that's controversial doesn't mean it will make a splash. I think it's the main thing. And you have to pick the correct subject. You can't just pick something that's controversial for the sake of picking something controversial to be famous. I think if you're truly into something and that's an idea that you truly believe in and there's good points for it, and then you pursue that idea, you eventually get followers, not because of the subject, but because you're passionately following your own thing, despite there being people that protest you. I think that's one thing. And it doesn't have to be things like, obviously wrong, like, oh, well, if you're a certain race, your IQ is lower or higher. But if it's something else, like maybe a social message or something that's really worth following. I can't think of one right now, but in that realm, something that's good, but there's a lot of people that's going to hate it, but truly you believe in it and you pursue it. I think that's worthwhile, and I think that's adds more value, and that's going to make a bigger splash, right? It's not going to be like somebody like, I guess when I was describing it, the image would be somebody who just draws controversial things for the sake of controversy, and I don't think that would make as big of a splash. I think, like in that case, you would be right. It's career suicide. Like everyone's gonna see you're disingenuous. And I think the biggest ingredients of the big splash is that you have to believe in it. It's something that you get behind. It's your own idea, and it's something that you would defend, and it's worth defending for you. And that's eventually it's going to create a big splash. Yes, so you're right. It doesn't apply to every single controversial moment, but I think what I was trying to say, what I was circling, is that if you believe in something, even if it is controversial, believe in it, pursue it, and you should be good. But the main ingredient is that you believe in it. It's your value.
Right.
Yeah.
And I need to slightly amend what I mentioned earlier about the idea of like, oh, there's no room for controversy in the current art world. And this is something that I think applies to a lot of media, which is that in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was hugely transgressive stuff happening in the art world that was extremely out of the norm, that caused all kinds of uproar. But as culture has changed, those things have become normal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's like there are things there are things in art that still do upset, sort of like, I guess you'd think of as like the classic American Christian conservative type. And there's still stuff in the art world currently that would really not sit well with those people, that would be very controversial. But because I think a lot of because those ideas were really prevalent and transgressive and popular in media, and like cutting edge media in the 80s and 90s, as that's become kind of the norm within the media sphere, within within like academics and the media, broadcasting, that kind of stuff, because that's become kind of normal. I
mean, look at who you're painting,
Those topics are no longer transgressive, and now the thing that would be transgressive would be to express a regressive opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's why there's a career for somebody like Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro. They're expressing ideas that are seen as being politically and socially regressive, which to a progressive media is really offensive. And I think, from my genuine perspective, I think it is offensive. I think both of them are kind of short-sighted and shitty in the things that they say. But that has become the thing that's seen as, transgressive. And so, it all depends on perspective. Yeah.
Right.
There was an argument, I think this might have been, I don't remember why I saw this. I think it might have been on like a Tucker Carlson clip, like a Fox thing, but it was talking about the National Foundation for the Arts. I don't know. It was some small fund that the government would contribute to every year for helping artists get studio space, like a grant for artists to get studio space. And I think Trump just completely like abolished that, just got rid of it. And there was somebody on, like, I think it was Tucker Carlson. It was a Fox show at any rate, arguing, saying like, what does it say to the idea of freedom of speech and culture if the government is unwilling to support the arts? And the host's response is like, oh, well, if the artist's art is shitting in a can, which he was referencing a specific actual piece. He was like, I don't want my tax dollars going towards that, And this was a recent thing. So yeah, for those people, art is still enormously, there's plenty of controversial stuff happening.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't feel controversial if you're in that world, because it's kind of the norm now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just to follow up on a couple of things that you mentioned, so number one, I'm like a fan of Shapiro, but I disagree with almost everything he says. But I watch him because of one reason only, is because he's very eloquent and he can defend himself. And I think if you're a controversial, right, he's one of those examples where he has controversial ideas, but he truly does believe them. I think he truly does believe in what he says, and he can argue his point really well. It's really hard to argue against, like, the things that he's saying, and obviously, if you're according to, like, mass thought, he's wrong, but you cannot argue with him and make him see your point. And usually you end up looking dumb, and you would, like, everyone would who would see that exchange would think that you're wrong. So I guess it brings back to, are you truly able to do that controversial thing well, and are you doing it because you believe in it, or because you're just trying to, like, rile people up? And another example is Borat. So we're currently bringing Borat, and the first movie that came out was hugely controversial. Like, had things that just were
big
not
time.
Yeah, it was just not the media. Like, he's making fun of people, he's messing with people, he's just scamming, like, not scamming, he's hoodwinking these people. And he has, like, his penis, I think, was out, and there was, like, two naked guys wrestling, and there was, like, jokes about incest.
That was Bruno, right?
It was also in Borat, when he and the fatter guy was, like, wrestling on the bed, because remember they had the Pamela Anderson arc, and then, like,
oh my God, I'm just remembering a bunch of Borat stuff. Jesus Christ.
And he was, like, the fatter dude was on the bed masturbating, and they were wrestling.
Do you remember Throw the Jew Down the Well?
Not really. Remind me, though?
Oh my God. I think it might have been in the TV show before the movie, but in Texas, there's a, like, clip of, Sacha Baron Cohen as Borat dressed in a cowboy uniform at, like, an open mic at a bar in Texas. Singing a song called Throw the Jew Down the Well. And he gets a bunch of people in the bar to start singing along with him. And it's just like, oh man, it's a good clip, and it's truly slightly scary seeing a bunch of, like, drunk Texans in a bar, like, chanting "Throw the Jew Down the Well" along with Borat. Anyways,
and he's artistic about it too. He's, like, very comedic, because normally if you just hear the news, right, somebody tells you the story, hey, a bunch of Texas barmen was saying "throw the Jews down the well." You hear that story, you hear, it being described that way, you're like, well, fuck, that's kind of shitty. But if you watch the clip,
it is shitty. It's shitty on their part. It's hilarious that he, again, hoodwinks a bunch of random people into doing that. But,
right, exactly. So him being in a bar, him filming that, right, you get a different way of getting the information, which is Borat pretending to be someone else, exposing the actual racism, or I guess in this point it's probably more ignorance than racism, like in somebody else.
Yeah,
you
I
watch
don't
that,
even
it's
think
funny.
it's racism.
Right, it's funny. Now it's funny, but like if you hear me telling you that story, Texas people in a bar like saying throw the Jew down the well, like, well, that's racist. But you see Sacha Baron Cohen in it, you think he's exposing racism within the society, or like at least ignorance within society. And because like deep down, like we all have these controversial thoughts about race, at least I think everyone does, but you know, we have to hide it, but he's exposing it. I think that makes it like funny. I think who was it? I think it was Freud who had this theory on comedy, and is that comedy is just people exposing things they're really, really stressed out about, but when you hear it out in the open, you have this momentary relief that induces laughter, because it's something that you can't say you're so worried about, but all of a sudden it's here, it's out in the open. You no longer have to feel guilty about the thought. You no longer have to feel like threatened by it. So you have this relief, and that's laughter. That's why I think racist jokes are just awesomely funny. Like tasteful racist jokes are just so funny, and I love those. And like I hate seeing people get canceled over like tasteful racist jokes, even if it's geared towards Asian people. Like I love it when South Park makes fun of Asian people, because like obviously, like number one, that's not how Asian people are, but number two, like it's just freaking hilarious, man. There's some stereotypes to play on that's truly hilarious, and it is true, but they make fun of everyone. So I don't know. I think it's the form of artistic expression.
South Park manages to do it in a way that few others can. So actually, let me know if we don't have enough time to go down this rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. There's a really interesting case of this where I think the canceling was totally justified, but I'd be curious what your take on it. Do you know who Sam Hyde is?
No. Relation to Mr. Hyde?
Okay, so
Mrs. Hyde?
So he was a, like, I guess comedy writer. I don't know. He had a show on Adult Swim that was kind of like Tim and Eric-esque.
Yeah.
That got canceled for having a bunch of like alt-right shit in it.
Yeah.
And he's this kind of like big controversial internet figure, because again, he's pushing sort of like, his brand is sort of like a Tim and Eric version of like Milo Yiannopoulos. You know, it's like very internet-y and crazy, and he attracts a bunch of sort of Zoomer racists, you know.
Yeah.
That might be painting it with a slightly broad brush. But anyway, so there's a lot of sort of online controversy about how warranted the show getting canceled was, despite it being extremely popular. Yeah. I'd be really curious if you look up, like, the show was called $1 Million Extreme. I'd be curious to hear what your take on it is after looking into it, because I think it's kind of like an interesting. It sounds douchey saying case study, because it makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about, and I don't. But
it's a pretty normal word. Case study. We call it a case study about whether or not something is racist from the eyes of somebody who was actually the subject of the joke. But I think even without watching it, I can have like an answer prepared, is that the intentions of it. Because if his intention, you making fun of them, was like, haha, these people are like shitty, let's make fun of them for all the weird shit that they have, and it's weird because I think they're weird, and we should all laugh at it. Obviously, that's not tasteful. It would be funny to some people still, and like I would almost even argue that it, just because that's true, maybe it's worth keeping it up. But on the other hand, like some racist jokes are just not in good taste. But I would have to look it up. Yeah, and if it is in good taste and there's good intention, sure, yeah. But there are definitely cases of people making racist jokes, and it is just like they're just like thinking these people are dirt, and I'm gonna laugh at them like with malicious intent. You know, that's the main difference.
He's interesting in that I think there are things about it that are funny, but also he is genuinely racist, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, it's kind of interesting in that respect, because I get the sense watching it, like, oh, he seems like a good comedy writer, but then also genuinely seems really like racist and anti-Semitic, which is just sort of an interesting combo to see like manifested into a show that actually got run on like a shitty late night spot on Adult Swim.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm frankly really surprised that the show ran at all. I guess it was like several years ago, and it wasn't until like 2014, 2015 that like the current meta really sank in.
Mm-hmm. People got all uptight about it. But yeah, like you can draw familiarities with Borat and with the guy that you just mentioned. Is that when Borat is blatantly saying racist shit like "throw the Jew down the well," you know that Sacha Baron Cohen is not a racist. Maybe he is, but he's not. Nah, in that case, he's not already well.
Right.
But yeah, there is a point to it in the satire. But it's also very apparent that if you have some humor and all it is very mean, and you're making fun of somebody at their expense without exposing anything, right? Because Sacha Baron Cohen, he's exposing societal's like deeply rooted racism, but like this other guy, if he was just picking out like the weird aspects of a certain race just to make fun of them in a mean-spirited way, I think that's probably bordering around untasteful, and that's how it is. Like honestly, from my own perspective, right? Whatever it is, put it out there. Whatever it is, have it out there. Let the people judge for it. But I think any form of censorship, when it doesn't really directly hurt anybody, like physically or threaten them, I think it should be out there. Because here's the thing, like racist people are also like, they also have their own opinion. There's reasons why they're so racist, and I think when we censor their stuff, what we're doing is just making them have more hatred within themselves, and there's no real discourse about it. So I don't know, like sounds like he had the show out for a while before it got canceled, so I'm hoping that created some level of discourse, and hopefully that made him like understand more. But honestly, it's about taste, about how to express it. Like the subject can be the same, you both say a lot of racist shit, but one has good intention, one does not. Obviously the one with no good intention gets canceled, but sometimes the ones with good intention also gets canceled because maybe they just didn't do it well, like your guy painting the KKK, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and so what was interesting is Hyde referenced like Always Sunny when he was like, "Why are they allowed to do blackface in their show, and I'm not allowed to do blackface in my show?" And yeah, I think it comes down to exactly that. Is the feeling was that like in Sunny they do it in a way that like it's very clear that these people are idiots. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like it's very clear that the characters of Sunny are just like really dumb in a lot of ways, and so them doing blackface is funny because you're kind of laughing at them,
right? Yeah, there's history to that. Like when blackface was first created, it's because no one would want to hire a black actor. Like so, they made white actors paint black faces. So that's the reason for it. But when Always Sunny did it, it was because they don't know what's wrong with it. They don't know the history. They don't know anything about it, and they make fun of it and the fact that it's thrown out there. Right? We're all afraid of like being caught in blackface. We're all afraid of like putting on that shit. But then when we see Mac do it. Yeah.
Afraid.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. A lot of politicians right now are getting caught in that.
You're saying it like...
like I want to do it.
Like everyone, you know, we all know secretly all people go home and put on black makeup, and we're just afraid to be caught in it.
Yeah. But when we think about that, and like
That's
honestly,
a hot take,
right? Yeah, but well, I guess I have to explain myself now before I get canceled. But basically, what it is you're putting paint on your face.
That was just hilariously phrased.
Yeah, I don't have the best phrasing, but yeah. So basically, it's about at some point, like somebody sees this controversy surrounding blackface and think, well, if I want to put black paint on my face and just act like something else, I can't do that anymore because of the political stigma. So I think when we see Mac do it on Always Sunny, we're like, oh, hey, somebody did it. It's like it's all of a sudden it's like a relief. It's like a release. It's like, oh, you see someone do it, and they're not like down in all the hells. Doesn't make it okay for anybody else to do it, but it just shows that there is a way to do it tastefully. What's the message behind it? And the message behind that is that these guys are ignorant. It's funny as hell. Like some people still do in this society, but in this light, it's funny. It's about the method of your expressiveness, how you're expressing it. And another like great, I think, instance of blackface is Tropic Thunder with Robert Downey Jr. Now this guy stars in Marvel films.
God, yeah.
What balls on this guy? Like he was in Marvel films blockbusters, everyone loves it, around the world famous, but this guy has done blackface. And why is it that somebody who has done that can star in these big budget films and not get cancelled? Because of the way that they did it. They did blackface because they just want to point out like the racist nature of Hollywood, that they would rather give like a white actor makeover to make him look black rather than hire black actors. They wouldn't actually do that in real life, but there is definitely a steering away from hiring minorities in like Hollywood.
Yeah,
like it exists throughout. Not all of them, not everybody, but like how many Asian actors do you see on there that doesn't play like a martial artist or like somebody who has an Asian accent or somebody who was like just stereotypically Asian? Like how many actors do you have? Like you have John Cho. I'm having trouble with the second one, but yeah, that's basically like the whole point with that. And Robert Downey Jr. through blackface was, well, not him, but the director through the blackface was just making a message. And I think
also like the notion of like this douchey, over the top method acting blackface. That's just so funny.
Yeah.
Like. That's a hilarious idea.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and it's just like you
can, I mean, I'm not contributing anything new there. I'm just stating the obvious, but it's just absolutely hysterical.
You'd be surprised how often it's necessary for you to state the obvious, because there are a lot of people out there who would directly miss the obvious, not because they're stupid, it's because they want to miss the obvious. They steer themselves away from it.
Now that you mention it, I am a little bit shocked that given the capacity to not take irony or sarcasm into account, I am a little surprised that he hasn't gotten more flack for that. You know,
he got a little flack. People try to do it, but they couldn't start it. Is because it definitely was. Like I think it was in the middle of like Avengers coming out, like not Iron Man, but Avengers coming out. Everyone was like, "Well, Robert Downey Jr. did blackface." But most people were like, yo, did you actually watch the movie? Like, you can't just see him in the picture of blackface and say he's racist. You have to see what it was for, why he was in the blackface. So when people recognized the message clearly, and there is a message, that was the main thing, that you are more likely to have people behind you. Like, that director, I think, did his version of doubling down. Like, as a director, when you're writing a script, do you want to put blackface in there? Isn't that rich career suicide? Most directors would say having blackface in their film is career suicide. But that guy doubled the fuck down. Didn't it come out like
2009?
Yeah. But blackface was not okay way before that, though.
But it was very different at that point. You know? Like, you go back and watch, like, Rush Hour. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, geez, there's so much shit in Rush Hour that you would never see now. You know? Like, it's worlds apart.
Yeah.
Go back and watch Rush Hour 1 sometime. Like, there's so much stuff. There's so much, like, misogyny and homophobia. And, like, stuff that aged very poorly. I love the movie. I love Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, and their dynamic alone excuses any amount of lazy, bad writing and outdated jokes. But it was kind of remarkable because I watched it not that long ago with Xanthi, who'd never seen it before, and it's so funny being like, oh my god, like again,
Jackie Chan dropping the N-word in like a bar.
Right, like that one scene.
It wasn't him saying it like unironically. It was just because he didn't know what it was. I still thought it was tasteful.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a funny scene, but it's just one of those things where you're like, whoa, that is remarkable that is something that is in like a blockbuster movie, like
that happened.
That is, and that's just like a minor little like gag, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's nuts. That's so enormously different.
Yeah, I mean, it's also I think it helped that the main character was like an Asian person and a black person. Maybe they would have tiptoed if it was a white person. Maybe not. Maybe not.
You know, now that you mention it, I hadn't thought of that. But you know, you're totally right. That's kind of like a minority slam dunk for the time, and they played it off. Like it is done in such a way that it really doesn't feel pandery in any sense. Like that is just such a good movie, you know. You really love the characters,
and like I'm sure that I keep bringing back like why am I blanking on his name? The director of Django, Quentin Tarantino.
Tarantino,
right? Yeah. So like modern day, right? He's definitely doing movies still in the modern day, and they definitely contain a lot of stuff that most directors I don't think could get away with at all. But he gets away with it because he does it really, really well. So I think even now, like if somebody really had like a great message behind blackface, and it wasn't that I wouldn't want to hire a black actor, here's blackface. It was like actually examining something. There's a message behind the existence of blackface. I think it's still viable. I think it's still viable. Because Quentin Tarantino exists, like I have hope in that. And I'm pretty sure there's some other actors who, some directors who would like inspire the same hope in me. It's just right now all that comes to mind is Quentin. But yeah, I still think it's possible though. I'm an optimist at heart, so I don't know.
Well, I also think that the meta is changing as like a larger number of voices are getting brought into it. Like Jordan Peele's stuff is like obviously the conversation is really different surrounding that because he is black and he does deal with like race in his movies in a very direct way. But yeah, like he's able to explore it in a way that Tarantino would not be able to,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's very, whatever, New York progressive of me. But yeah, it is cool seeing that as a wider variety of people are making movies, that you see the ability to have that conversation in art expanding.
Yeah. Speaking of art expanding, how's that Borat painting? Like, what percentage? Because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark, so let's.
Oh snap! All right,
Yeah.
well we could wrap it up.
That's
enough like Borat.
Man, I feel like I'm not doing you as much justice as I should because like normal good paintings and art, like they take more than 1 or 2 hours to complete.
I still wish I were faster. It depends on who you are. There are some people that could paint circles around me in this amount of time.
Well,
so it's always a struggle trying to get more effective with this kind of stuff. But that's a big goal of mine, is being able to knock out a painting that looks like genuinely finished in a couple hours. I'm happy with this one than the Nick Cage one. I think the Nick Cage one I was really spaced out a bit too much here. I'll do a little close up.
Yeah.
Let me just put in one last little thing to define something under his chin.
Yeah.
And then I'll call it on our good friend.
Yes. But
Have you seen any of the stuff from the new movie?
I have not. I'm trying to like stay away from it because I really want to watch it. Like I want to do it justice. So yeah, I'm waiting for it. Like maybe we can watch that together sometime. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to
Hey,
that.
I'd be down.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it is unfortunate watching something over like Discord is not quite the same as getting
well, we'll have ways around that.
to do so in person. But yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on just a sec.
Oh, take your time. We still have.
A minute.
Yeah, we still have like a relatively good amount of time. I just want to let you know, so you speed up instead of just throw about.
What time is it right now?
So it is right now 9 o'clock exactly, which means it's 12 a.m. your time. Which I'm really just surprised you're still staying up this late, and you know it's awesome of you to just like stay up this late and like do this show.
Snap.
So yeah.
All right. Well, now that you mention it, I'm going to stop.
Yeah. 12 a.m.
I need to go to bed. I need to go to bed here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me just get my paintbrushes down so I can do a juicy close up on.
Juicy
our friend here. Ooh, you know what? Sorry, there's one. I just remembered. I have to put the little highlights in his eye.
Okay,
I can't believe I almost forgot to do that.
Do it. It's worth losing like a couple minutes of sleep for the highlights in Borat's eye.
I won't even take a couple minutes. It'll be quick.
Really? Okay, I'm timing you right now. Let's see where your definition of quick is, Mr. Artist. I'm just kidding. I won't actually time you.
Crap, I just realized this brush, it's my detail brush and I forgot to clean it and it is
get that
almost done.
Sparkle in there, the sparkle. Wow.
Oh yeah.
You know, this Chinese proverb about a person drawing a dragon without irises, without like eyeballs. And they asked him why. It's like, well, when you add in the eyeballs, like it's too realistic. And the story was the guy was like, no, you draw the eyeballs in, man. Otherwise, it's like a dragon with no eyeballs. Like, what the shit is that? The person's like, oh, okay, he draws the eyeballs, and the dragon comes alive and he flies away. And it's a proverb, and what it is that you draw something.
I like that.
So yeah, you draw something so realistic that it almost seems like it's real. And in that proverb, that thing becomes real. Yeah. So in this current one, like you added the spark to the eye. All of a sudden, like I feel like this whole thing was changed around.
Damn, why can't we have cool shit like Chinese proverbs in the West? They're just some damn good proverbs. That's a good one. Yeah. I want to look that up.
Actually,
That's really cool.
I'll send that to you as well, but there's actually a good reason why America doesn't have proverbs. Number one is the language structure. Number two, and this is the most important thing, is that China dug these proverbs from thousands of years ago. China has 4,000 years of history. America has 300, not even 300 years of history. So that's the big thing there. It's just like 10 times the amount of history and then a couple. So yeah, 13 times the amount of history.
This sounds corny of me to say, but there's just so much wisdom in that proverb. I love it.
Wisdom, yeah, exactly. I mean, especially
okay. Well, I'm gonna look that up and memorize it and use it when I teach my art class, because there's a lot of applicability to what painters do with that idea.
All right. It translates roughly into draw the dragon and then dot the eye, or and paint the eye. Draw the dragon, paint the eye. You'll probably find it that way. It's a very popular one. But
all right, let's see.
Speaking of dotting,
we're gonna zoom in.
Actually, it was already zoomed in, but actually, yeah, right now we have this very, very weird, like, I think. Hang on, give me half a second to adjust. Hold that position real quick, because it's I don't know. Hang on, give me one second. It's gonna look funny in post production, but you turned it around, and then it's gonna look like how it was before you did anything. Okay, all right, there it is. Okay.
I just want to blend one last little thing. I know I keep saying I'm done and need to go to bed, but I just want to do this one final thing. But there he is. There's Borat.
Yeah,
I gave him a slight accidental receding hairline, but that's okay.
Actually,
I don't think he'll be too bothered by it.
Yeah. Make sure you don't draw the eyes too well, otherwise, Sacha Baron Cohen's face is gonna come out and just like start trying to kiss you or something.
Yeah, there he is. Oh, okay. Here, I'm gonna flip my camera around.
Okay. All right. Well, that was incredibly fun watching you do the painting while we're doing some discourse over some delicious political stories. And it seems like... there it is. All right. Alright, yeah, that's good. I'm trying to do like acrobatics in terms of like editing. Yeah, you are sort of back. I'm trying to adjust, yeah. This is testing the limits of my like live stream editing ability. It's good. This is good for my future. I'm gonna need it. These skills are very, very valuable. Valuably.
Yeah, you gotta know how this stuff works.
Yeah, exactly, man. If this is gonna be my future career. Alright, cool. We are all good. Alright. Yeah, but alright, cool. Thanks so much, Aidan, for that episode and for drawing the Borat. It was truly like joy, like watching Borat go from blank paper into Borat himself. In fact, I'm probably gonna watch the movie tonight just because you drew it. But yeah, that was good. Any final thoughts, my friend? How does it feel drawing the face of Borat, our savior?
Oh, well, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a lot easier than Nick Cage. It was substantially easier than Nick Cage. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like every time we talk, it somehow always devolves into us talking about race and social issues. So I'm not totally sure how that ends up happening. Yeah, I guess it is. I don't know why that's where it goes. I think I gotta try and keep it lighter next time.
I think these like deeper kind of conversations is actually more interesting, because if you talk about art and then like all you do is like explain about like what you're doing, like sometimes it might be but if you talk about things like race, something controversy, and like, oh well, I want to listen to this shit, and the art's like icing on the cake, although it's supposed to be the other way around, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So my goal for next time is to not talk about reparations or exoticism or.
Good luck with that, because I'm gonna try to pull you in. I'm gonna try to pull you into that. So you resist all you can, my buddy. I like it when they fight.
All right. Well, we'll work that out. We'll duke that out next time.
All right. Let's wrap this up. So thank you tonight, Aidan, for tonight for showing us the painting, and also thank you to our viewers. It looked like there was about a maximum of like 5 live viewers for a long time. 2 of you guys stick all the way through, so thank you so much for that. Like total of 7 playtimes.
Heck yes.
So, yeah, thank you so much, you guys, for like supporting Aidan's Academy of Art and supporting both of us on this show. But yeah, tonight right now marks the end of this episode, and we will see you next time.